I
Okay.
had a similar experience.
Oh,
A
I'll ask
dream
you
about.
about it. We're live right now, Krista. So whatever you say, the world will hear. Okay.
I love.
So Krista and I were talking behind in the green room, I think you would call it, about social media. And our guest has a company that does social media. So our conversations were comical and good about where it's going and the importance of it and just all the different things. So Krista is somebody I've been after, I mean, not after, but I've been wanting to really have her embrace our community because we believe in it. We don't necessarily believe you got to live on it. So, Krista, would you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into the podcast.
Absolutely. So I'm Krista O'Neill. I'm the founder of Miss Social Media. We help local businesses reach the local community by leveraging the power of social media. And to Pete's point, I don't want you to live on it. That's kind of why we're here, is to help you get off of it, but stay on it in a purposeful way to help grow your business and build genuine connections with your ideal customers.
Yes, that's so good. So, the first question is, so it's your business.
Hmm.
How do you balance being a mom, being a wife, running a business, doing social media? How often? How do you balance it?
My calendar is king. That being said, I don't always nail it. Like there's days you win, there's days you lose. And I say lose in air quotes because your goal is to always be better, the next day. But sometimes you don't get everything done, or sometimes you hear your kid in the background when you're on the line.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
But no, it's a balancing act for sure. My calendar helps out a lot. So does a good babysitter. So
Yes,
and a great husband. So all of those things coming together really help me have the ability to balance all of it at the same time.
that's so good. So tell our viewers, like, there's always a kind of a journey into social media. I had one many, many years ago, and man, I have some cool stories in that. So, how did you find yourself to being an owner of a social media company?
Yeah. So I feel like much like a lot of businesses, you kind of say, oh, it just happened. Like it kind of just fell into place. And that's very true. A lot of things fell into place on my end. I fought the power of social media for a long time. I am a millennial. So growing up, like high school, Facebook came out, college, Instagram came out, and immediately I recognized this is powerful, but it could be used in a good or a bad way. And a lot of people started to become attached to their phones. And so I tried to distance myself because I didn't want to be a consumer in that and just being attached to your phone all the time. But in 2020, I was the owner of a print publication in North Metro Atlanta. I still love print. The story is not to discourage anybody from doing print, but it's just to speak to the power of social media. Part of that publication, part of the model was doing in-person social events. And obviously COVID really shut that down to a certain degree. And so I then went on Instagram and created a local influencer page. And over the course of 5 months, I grew that to about 3,000 followers. And they were all local East Cobb followers. And
Mhm.
I was able, through leveraging the power of social media, to promote my businesses and actually track revenue that I had earned for the businesses that were partnered with my print publication. I was able to track that through promoting them on that Instagram page. And so that's where the light bulb really went off. Again, I love print. I still love print, but I became addicted to the ability to track and see analytics and grow a business using the power of social media. At the time, I had about 50 ish clients on the print side of things, and only 10 max had a presence on Instagram, which was the primary driver. Quite a bit of them had a presence on Facebook, and we did a little bit of work on Facebook, but Instagram was really the main focus at that point. And so that's how I found myself helping these local businesses build their presence on both Instagram and then increase their visibility through Facebook.
Oh, that's so good. I mean, I heard a little bit before when we chatted in other conversations. So, but to hear it kind of like as you explain that to our viewers to understand, there is the power of social media, and I believe just like you said, there's two sides to it.
Mhm.
Just like you can drink moderately and you can drink excessively. So
Right.
both, it's not the alcohol, it's the person consuming it. So if the person is going to consume, which you brought up a good point, I want to bring our viewers up to the consumption of content.
Right.
Not so much there, it's up to 2 hours a day that people scroll. And what you're doing is you're scrolling other people's lives.
Mhm.
It's up to you to live your life. And we're watching 4 hours of consumption of TV. So if we break that down, that's 6 hours of 18. If you sleep 8, that's 33% of your life you're consuming. And there's no joy in consuming, there's joy in creating. And so
Exactly.
that's part of where we're in a crazy situation where we're so consuming other people's lives. We're worried about other people and we're not focusing on ourselves and our health. So,
Mhm.
what would you say as we get into 2025? How are you? What are some strategies that you would want our viewers to know that you're seeing that you could share with us?
Well, a lot is changing on social media, from the layout of Instagram to the algorithms behind the scenes to even the platforms themselves. Obviously, we've seen some movement on TikTok, and that's still up in the air. So a lot is changing, but ultimately, being authentic and organic is one thing that's been consistent since the beginning of social media. The way that I see social media is it's the biggest referral network. It's the biggest word of mouth networking group that you can be a part of. And when you go to a networking group, because most business owners understand that analogy, you want to meet real people. You don't want to meet robots who say the same line over and over again. And social media is very much the same in that people are craving and wanting authentic organic content. So that is the trend, and I do still see a lot of businesses posting the more advertising looking graphics on social media. That's not the trend of what people want to see on that platform.
Mhm.
So moving more toward the organic content, the behind the scenes, the take a look at my business, meet the manager, that is really what's trending. And I wouldn't say that that's new. That's been what is successful since the beginning of social media. But I think it's new in the sense that businesses are now realizing that that's what consumers want to see on this platform.
Yeah, I love that. We talk about in our community to being a key person of key person, key person of influence, and that people buy from people. They don't
Correct.
buy from businesses. So when businesses are out there, the more, and I just read an article on Google about Google reviews. When you put a person's name like Chef John gave a great meal at the restaurant. People want to hear about people. We don't buy from companies, we buy from people. So when you're putting your strategy together and you got a reluctant business owner that doesn't like to be out there, how do you help them overcome that strategy? Because as a strategist, you have to kind of they may think they can be behind the scenes and never know, but what do you say to them and how do you handle something like that?
That's a tough question because not everyone likes to be in front of the camera, and I get that. And we come across that with business owners who don't want to be part of social media. They don't want to be front and center. So there are ways around that in the sense that you can talk about your staff or you could highlight other people in your business.
Hmm.
And those are ways that you could get around that. You can also provide value to your consumers without having your face associated with it. Now, the best content, and I think you and I would agree on this, is the business owner talking about the business because you're the one who has the knowledge and the information.
Yep.
And that is the most powerful content. But I like to work with businesses to find a solution. And I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I want them to be happy with the content that we're producing. And if it's somebody that just absolutely, whether it's they hate the sound of their voice or they hate being on camera and they can't look at themselves or whatever it is, I like to figure out a way to work within that and solve that problem for them and work around that problem to find a solution rather than forcing them into a box they don't want to be in.
Mhm.
So that's a long way to say that there are ways to get around it. The best content is going to be with you behind literally behind the camera versus behind the scenes. But we can work with businesses to create really good content without them being part of it if that's what they want.
Yeah, I like that answer because when we work in groups of 20, and the strategy for one is not the same for the other. Everybody has a unique strategy that you have to be aware of because you can't just cookie cutter every single business to doing the same thing because everyone's a little different. Their knowledge, their expertise, just like you said, they they're strong in this, but they're not strong in this area. And if you force somebody to do something they're not good at doing, it's like, hey, I got to be excited about going to the dentist. It's like we don't do cartwheels and tell all the world that we're going to a dentist today. It's just not traditionally. It's not like you're going to a Braves game or something like that. It's different, and you have to really understand the person, the business, their strengths. And I can see by working with people, there's many ways to get to the end result, and you have to figure that out with them to give them those perspective because the world is changing rapidly.
Mhm,
Authentic people will always win. People want authentic people. And
mhm.
so just be yourself. And we chatted about before we came on the air about I ask people a lot to be on the podcast because I guess I just love the feedback and the inner, just talking back and forth. And I'll hear people, and this is what they say. Uh, no, I'll have to decline, respectfully decline. And I'm saying, I know what they're saying. I'm fearful if I say the wrong thing, it might be out there forever. Well, if you're yourself, you can't say the wrong thing. It's who you are. If you just speak from the heart, there's no wrong thing or right thing. It's just you speaking like you care. You
Mhm.
care about people. And so, but I do, and sometimes I'll push back a little bit just to have fun. Sometimes I just go, well, that's another one that'll take some time. So, what do you think? Like, to tell our viewers when it comes to, this is a new question, so I don't know if I told you I was going to ask it. So, we grow through trauma. Is there some things in your life that, I mean, we never like to be in the middle of a storm. That's just the fact of life. But
Mhm.
we get on, every storm comes to an end. There's light at the end of the tunnel. You hear all that. Have you had anything real difficult in your life that you've learned that once you got on the other side of it, you go, man, boy, did I learn a lot there. And then you changed. Can you share anything like that with our viewers?
Yeah, I think the best way to answer that is if you haven't had those moments, you haven't been doing anything difficult. Because
Yes.
if
Yep.
you don't have those failures, then you haven't really been trying anything, is kind of how I see it. So, yeah, there's definitely points throughout my life where I've had failures. I have started too many businesses to count, quite literally. The first one that stuck was the print advertising that I mentioned earlier. So that
Hmm.
was kind of my introduction into marketing, and then this is the second one that stuck, so to speak. But I have started far too many clothing companies that I have too many ideas, right? A true
Right.
entrepreneur really does. And I think it was probably an Andy Standy line, no for now, not forever. And that is what I like to think about some of my business ideas. They'll come to me and I will look at the business idea and say, okay, that might be a no for now, but not forever. And I just kind of put it in my list of good ideas for maybe later or the future. Maybe it'll come to pass and it wasn't a good idea to begin with. But yeah, just to kind of name one that comes to the top of my mind. And it comes to the top of my mind because I'm a big goal person, and I like to start actually with 20 years and work my way back to 5 and then 1 year. And so the reason it's top of mind is because it loops back into that 20-year goal. So in college or going to college, I applied to two colleges, actually just one to start out with, and it was UGA. I'm from East Cobb, so everyone in East Cobb applied to go to UGA. And even though I had a great GPA in college or in high school, I was not one of the lucky ones that got in. And so I was rejected by UGA, and for that reason ended up going to Georgia Southern, which I love Georgia Southern. I can gladly say that I was one of Georgia Southern's graduates, which is a feat in itself, but I graduated in 4 years, which I am an elite class. Not many people graduate from Southern in 4 years.
I see the 5 and 6 year plans down there.
Yeah, yeah, very, very normal for Georgia Southern graduates. But that being said, the 20-year goal is I want to speak on the UGA graduation commencement stage and talk about how they became enemy number one. And
Oh gosh, that's great.
so that's how it loops back around. If anybody UGA is watching and has the plug there, you just let me know.
That is so good. It's funny you brought up the enemy. There's a mentor of mine, Patrick Bet David. He wrote the book, the Choose Your Enemies Wisely, or something. Yeah, Choose Your Enemies. It's on my back.
I get that. Yep.
And I never really thought of it that way until I read his book. And man, I must either have a lot of enemies or what. But I mean, I was like, I put 20 down when I was
Yeah.
going through it. So I do have, and it's just, I think we, when we have those, it's kind of like one of my enemies way back when was the big tech companies. I wanted to give people that power to refer and not have to depend, because I was shut out of Yelp back, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And I have 500 Google reviews. So I review people all the time. But all of a sudden I remember they sent me a thing, you violated some policy, shut me down. This years ago, YouTube shut down one of my channels. I'm going like, okay, what did I do wrong? And they don't answer you. They just don't answer. They just shut you down. I had 200 Yelp reviews gone. And then I'd have all these people, because I'd set up the companies. They would all call me and go, hey, you want to advertise on Yelp? I said, well, you solve this one problem, you have potential. And I said, get me in touch with somebody who shut down my account. Oh, I can't do that. I said, well, then end of conversation. And I hung up. So I think to back about that, choose your enemies wisely. We're more motivated when we competing, and I'm going to guess you're competitive. Would that be a fair assumption?
It would be a fair assumption. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I think we all love to compete. There's an app that I use, and they have a leaderboard, and I look at that thing every day because I want to get in that top 10. And I do, and I plan my strategy. So we all compete, and I think that's a great book. And I think it's a good thing for our viewers to understand is like whoever it is, whatever it is, choose it and then use it to motivate you to in your strategy. I mean, I think that's a great goal. And I guess I could have one against my high school, against Virginia Tech, because they flunked, both of them flunked me. So, so I
Wow.
mean, what did I do? I don't care. It was just way back when. But I did for years my high school, because I flunked English in high school, and it was the
It's funny.
first year that they didn't give blank diplomas, and so it was like I knew I wouldn't. I didn't even come close to passing because the guy was very tough. So I go to summer school to pass, and I'm in summer school. People don't give a rip about high school. I did, and I flunked. But anyway, I think we end up passing people in the last 10, 15 years just because they show up. We got to get back to competing. I mean, it
Yeah.
was up to me to figure it out, no matter what my excuse was, but I didn't. And I failed and I learned. I learned a valuable lesson that you gotta pass. So
Yeah.
so so what would you say? I mean, in running your business, what do you do with your team that you could share with our viewers that you have seen success with?
Having that communication and free communication, like if we do something wrong or if I am off on my leadership, I want them to be comfortable checking me on that, and having that accountability. So, this is a pro and con. Some people like this idea, some people don't, but we really operate more as a family versus a team. And
Mhm.
again, that might work in some businesses, it might not work in others. And there is that fine line, of course, because at the end of the day, we're all working together and there's hierarchy. But I really do value the ability to have that open line of communication without judgment. And we can have that conversation if we have disagreements. It's not my way or the highway. My team knows very well that I am happy for constructive criticism and we're never going to be perfect, but we get closer when they contribute, not when I dictate things and just say that is how it is. So having that open line of communication has been super helpful with our team.
That is so good. When you share that, I won't say the individual, but I'm a person that picks up the phone. I pick up the phone with girls. I call them. They'll text me, and I just pick up the phone, call them right back. So anyway, I was picking up the phone, calling the employee of this person, and I would always talk to her, and we would have conversations. Not long. I'm not a. I don't have to talk 30 minutes to get my point across, but I like to emotionally talk to people because texting, I can't feel the emotion in it. So anyway, I asked the question. I said, "So how often do you talk to so and so?" And she said, "I've talked to him twice in a year."
Wow.
Twice in a year. I about fell out of my chair. Here, can you imagine you only talking to your employees, your team members, 2 times in a year?
No.
It blew my mind. I mean, I'm going like, how
Wild.
does anybody have a relationship with anybody if they don't talk to somebody?
Yeah, that's wild.
It's not what you just shared for our viewers. It's not that uncommon because we've been disconnected by technology. We pop an email, we send a text, but there's times you got to talk to people. You have
Mhm.
to have a conversation with people. How did you learn that? I mean, like, were you just give our viewers, like, when you have those kind of leadership traits, you just don't buy those at Walmart. How did you learn that?
Oh gosh. That's a great question. I think a lot of it does come from my educational background. Similarly, I was not great at English in high school, which is ironic though, because I went on to major in communication studies in college and write 18 to 25 page papers. So maybe I should write my English teacher in high school on that enemies list as well. um, Right. But I would say a lot of it does come from my formal education and learning and understanding the value of communication and how different people communicate. And then others of it, I will say, is more birthright. And what I mean by that is I'm the oldest child. So you oldest children out there will understand. We have very strong personalities, let's put it that way. So I can't take all the credit. I would just have to say I was born with some of it, and then others of it came through that formal education. And then again, being an entrepreneur and having friends and family. And to your point earlier of doing it wrong, I have a strong personality and I was a deterrent, I'm sure, to a lot of people in middle and high school when I didn't know how to control that personality. So I think it was just learned over the years, more so probably from communication failures than success.
Hmm. How about as a a business owner, an entrepreneur, how do you keep yourself sharp? Do you listen to things? Do you read? Like, what's your form of education or learning style?
I love having a podcast on in the background. That's my favorite for sure.
Hmm.
Second to that, I would say is reading, which I wish I could do more, but obviously it's so much easier to consume information via podcast these days if you can multitask. I guess I'll give that caveat. So podcasts and reading are my number one and number two.
Ooh, that's good. You know, I was a slow reader being dyslexic. I was in the remedial reading class like it was AP classes for most. So I would read books and I would go, "What the heck did I just read?" And I was just like, so I wasn't, I would always start books and not finish them because I'd get bored and I'd pick up another book. But
Mhm.
this is what I just wanted to share with our viewers because I've gone from a slow reader to a speed reader. Now, I was trained by a gentleman by the name of Jim Quick, who wrote the book Limitless. And he was a brain coach and he went through trauma, hitting his head at a young age, and then overcoming that learning disability style, whatever it was, to being a super learner. But this is how I consume books now. I first I will AI the 10 like insights from the book. I get it on Audible and I put it on between 1.5 and 2x speed, and then I read the book last. I go through books with such retention. I don't even think I'm the same person because I think what Jim has said, I've trained my brain to retain what's important so I can skim and I can move through pages and I can retain things. And then the last thing I do is I try to teach it. I went because well, whatever we listen to, we retain 10%, but whatever we teach, it goes up to 90%. So you can increase your retention by 80% if you just teach it. And I'm like, every day I want to pinch myself because being a slow learner and those kind of things, it's almost like I've transformed into a fast learner. And it's kind of cool because AI, my partner's an AI specialist, has an agency, and he always was after me the last year. He go, Peter, you using AI? And I go, nah, I'm too busy. I'm podcasting. I said, I don't like that stuff, you know. And he would, keep saying, have you started using it? And I go, no, no, no. I said, leave me alone. I'm not going to get into that stuff. And then I had to put a course together, a mindset, goals, and habits course. So I had ChatGPT on my phone and I put the commands in and I put the criteria. And I'm telling you, in 10 seconds, I had the outline for a course. Now,
Amazing.
I couldn't have done that in a year previous. I mean, it's just my brain is just not set up for that. But I can now take the framework and I can put a course together. And at that moment, the light bulb went off. Then I started doing the books, getting the summaries of books and all that, and then just getting the highlights of stuff. And it has made so much difference. And I love you say that podcasting because we're on a podcast. So that was good. And it was kind of good because I wanted to bring our viewers. I did a podcast on this. Is we just finished our election. One person wanted to do a podcast, the other person would not. One person did a 3 hour podcast, another person did not. One won, one lost. What's the difference? Because you can't fool 3 hours of a conversation. But if you're trying to control and fearful of what you say, you'll never do a podcast because you got to be authentic, like we shared with our viewers. You got to be real and you got to be able to just share from the heart. If you do those things, you're fine. But if you're wanting to control what people think
Mhm.
you are, it'll never work. And that's why she decided not to go on the podcast, which is crazy, but hey, everybody makes their decisions. All right, I want to be respectful of time because I said 25 minutes and we're hit 30. So, what would you want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast? What would be the one thing?
Hmm. I'm in a season of doing things that are uncomfortable for the progression of your business, your self-development. So getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So with that being said, I'm going to challenge all of you to show up on social media somehow. Not I'm not going to set a time frame. I'm not going to say you need to show up X amount. Let's just say you're going to show up more than you're showing up now. Whatever that means for you, whether you're doing 2 posts a week, now you're going to do 3. If you're doing 5, maybe you do 10 extra minutes of engagement a day. But I'm going to just challenge you guys to do a little bit more than you are now, and that way you'll be a little bit better than you are today.
Man, I love that. That's a wise, that viewers, that's wise coming from a business owner, a mom, a wife, a Georgia Southern graduate. And yes. Oh, I love it that you got out in 4. I don't know anybody that got out in 4. I just know a lot of people that went, and they
Yep.
all dragged it out to 6. And I thought that's the only plan they had down there. But now I know they do have a 4-year plan.
You know one 4-year graduate now.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. So, Krista, thank you so much. Oh, I have to give our viewers. So, if you want to get a hold of Krista, her email is right there on the screen. So, why don't you tell our viewers, for the podcast people on Spotify that are listening, how can they get a hold of you?
Yep. So if you want to email me, that is the best way to get in touch with us. It's Krista, that's Krista, at Miss Dash Social Media, and that's MISS dash socialmedia.com. So the email is Krista at Miss Dash socialmedia.com. You can also follow us on Instagram. That's just Miss Social Media, and that is 3 S's in the middle there because MISS and then S for social. So that one's a little bit funny. But those are the best 2 ways to get in touch with us. Obviously, you can go to our website, which is miss-socialmedia.com as well.
That is so good. I'm going to give our viewers, too, a gift. They're going to get our ecosystem, which is our master class. And I
Ooh.
want you to take note of this master class. The 10th step on the master class is social media amplification. And that is Krista right here. So go through the master class, understand the key ways to grow and scale your business. You got to have social media because it's out there for you. If you use it, you'll greatly improve your business. If you don't, well, then you can just flatline your business. So, Krista, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. We appreciate that so much. And I always leave, be bold, make an impact, and have fun. So,
Well,
thank you, Krista, for being with us.
absolutely. Talk to you later.